Okay, Brad, do you want to call the meeting to order?
Yes. I will now call the meeting to order. There are three of us present today, which is a quorum. And that would be Teresa, Shauna, and myself. Tim has a job commitment today, and Teresa is, or not Teresa, but Kim is on an adventure.
Teresa, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear. It's a little muffled, but I can hear it.
Okay.
Okay. We're ready to go, Jenny?
Yes.
So, did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from May? Are there any additions, corrections?
No, they look good to me.
Teresa? Okay, then if I could have a motion to accept the minutes from May as they stand.
I move to accept the meeting minutes from April 13th.
Teresa, will you say?
I second. Yeah, I second.
Thank you. All right, so all those in favor of accepting the minutes, show me a hand. Okay, thank you, they're approved. We're now on to comments. I don't see the mayor with us today. So we will move on to whoever is next. I don't see any public people here, so I don't see any.
Let me just confirm my email really quick.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. We don't have any written public comments.
Okay, thank you. I also don't see our city administrator with us here today. So,
Yeah, Jen is out of town, so she wasn't able to make the meeting this month.
we will now have Jandy give her report.
Okay, so this month I have been super busy with our 2021 Washington Public Library's annual reports. I sent everyone a copy to their email. I can get you a physical copy. It's just 21 pages, so I didn't want to print that out for everyone today. But we have to do this every year for the state of Washington. They also send some of these statistics to ALA and the United States government and that sort of thing. So it's all of our statistics for the year. It's extremely in-depth. This year, for the first time, they had everyone track how many hours they spent on this report. It was not like consecutive time, but mine was over 15 hours. So it's super detailed. I just wanted to go through not every single detail, but the stuff that I thought was most pertinent to us. And the stuff I just found interesting or compelling and that sort of thing. So the number of residents who have a library card, this is anyone who lives in Liberty Lake proper or the lake. We have 4,364 resident cards, and then non-resident cards, meaning anyone who wants can have a Liberty Lake library card. We have 1,936. So that brings us to a total of 6,300 people who have a Liberty Lake library card. That's children and adults. So anyone ages 5 and up who has a card with us currently. We do each year do a purge of people who haven't used their card in a certain number of years. So this is like accurate. It's not just like since the beginning of time. We do update these things. We currently have 2 librarians with a master's degree and 8 total employees at the library. Our operating budget for the library is $607,371. 607,371. So that's our total operating budget for 2021. Something that changed in 2021 that I wanted to point out to you is our benefits expenditures. So because the city reached over 50 employees, that changed who we had to offer insurance benefits to. So prior to this, it was just 40 hours. When the city reached this threshold, now it was anyone who was 30 hours or more has to be offered medical insurance benefits and that sort of thing. So our benefits budget for the library doubled, just because the majority of my staff is 30 hours. So that went from about 80,000 to 160,000. So that's something that was really noteworthy for 2021. The total number of money that we spent on books in 2021 was $48,000. The total number of funds we spent on electronic resources is $15,000, bringing our total collection expenditures to $63,000 and change.
But when you say electronic, that is like the hotspots and stuff like that, or what is that?
So for electronic resources, we consider that our databases. So EBSCO, JSTOR, any of those things, also things like Libby. That's our most used thing that we have. It's just our electronic books and ebooks. So that's what our electronic expenditures are. We currently have 20,600 print books in the library for 2021 and 982 audiobooks. As far as electronic audio materials, we have 22,794. So the majority of our audiobooks are virtual. We currently have 1,712 DVDs, bringing our total holdings with electronic resources and print resources to 124,399.
So those numbers are different from what you emailed us. I show total holdings of 154,000.
Okay. I'm working from the one that was on my desk, so I'm wondering if I found some more.
But yeah, the total audio materials downloadable are 52,000 on this report.
Okay, that's the one that was funny. Now that you're bringing that up, when I went to submit this, it had put a star on it saying, this number looks way different than last year.
Yeah.
And I went back and did some more digging. So I bet that's what that was from. This is my printout that I had made before I sent everything in. So yeah, 52,000 you said?
Audio material.
52,000.
downloaded is 52,851.
52,851.
The
Okay.
Total holdings to 154,755.
5475. Okay. Thank you for keeping us straight. In 2021, we were closed from January to March 8th was the first day that we reopened following COVID. So they had us enter the number of curbside hours that we offered to patrons. And that was 297. And we had a total of 3,183 curbside visits between January and March. We still get a few a week, but that was the majority of our curbside hours. So I thought that was really a huge number from January to March. So I wanted to point that out. So
1,000 visits a month.
yeah, people were still using the library even though it was only curbside. The number of people who visit the library total physically after we reopened was 37,761 people. So we have a people counter camera above our doors that tracks that for us. The number of books, physical materials, books, audiobooks, DVDs, physical things that were checked out in the library in 2021 was 68,426. And the number of electronic materials that were checked out in 2021 was 28,165.
So that's an interesting number because it's, 3 times as many physical materials for
Mhm.
electronic resources, but our holdings for electronic resources are much greater than our holdings for physical resources. But I think we don't have the space for physical resources, which probably puts a lot into that.
Yeah, and we do weed. So for books that we're bringing in, we are removing
Yeah.
books out. So that we don't keep the collection isn't stale. But yeah, I thought that was compelling because people who like ebooks love ebooks, but a lot of people still do like physical books.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people are saying you don't really need a physical library. People just get stuff online. But from our numbers, at least our community,
This
It's
sounds like a completely
almost-
different story.
yeah,
Well, didn't the assessment also indicate that trend of just being on on the phone or reading everything here was kind of becoming more people wanting to have the book and the pages in front of them. I think I remember reading something in the assessment about that, so.
I know that was something that they asked in the assessment for our community was what did they prefer, physical or digital materials. And then I have a breakdown of children's materials versus adult materials. So we had the circulation of children's materials was 56,393, and the circulation of adult materials is 26,663. And obviously, if you add those two numbers up, it doesn't equal 68,000, and that's because our 68,000 is our materials at Liberty Lake Library. And this number that has how much children and adult materials were circulated includes books that were checked out at other libraries in our system. So our materials, so we have interlibrary loans provided to other libraries you share a catalog with. So we provided 11,862 books to other libraries. So that's half of our physical print collection because our print collection is 20,000. So that's about half of our collection went to another library during the year. So that's the thing that I really love about CIN is that we're pooling all of our books with 30 other libraries. It gives our patrons a much larger collection. The library I worked at in college was just a public library, and we only had our books on our shelves. That's all that we were able to offer our patrons. And that could be really sad, especially like during the summer, we would get an influx of kids coming into the library and they'd be like, oh, I want to check out Harry Potter. And you'd have to tell them after 11 other kids do, like, and if you think, yeah, next summer you can check out Harry Potter. So that's the thing I love about sharing our agreement with the other libraries. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is our programming statistics. So let's see. So we have 70 programs that we offered in 2021 to children ages 0 to 5. This was in-person programs. So this was our story times mainly that we started up in September. We had 1,512 kids attend our in-person programming that were children ages 0 to 5. So we get so many families that come to our story times every week. For ages 6 to 11, we offered 14 in-person programs in the library. Again, keep in mind that this is between September and December when we started offering in-person programs again. And we had 409 kids attend those programs. Okay, teen programs. We had 9 teen programs that we offered and 102 kids that attended those programs. And then for adult programs, we had 7 adult programs. And we had 106 adults attend those programs. Our numbers are usually much higher, but since it was only 4 months, that's what we have. Attendance at our all ages programs. So we offered 2 all ages programs last year. That was our end of summer reading program at the Rocky Hill Park that we did outside in August, so we could social distance. And then we had our Halloween party that we attended in the library. And between those two programs, we had 575 people attend. Let's see, so total number of in-person programs we had in 2021 was 124, and total attendance for all of those combined is 2,432.
And that's for 4 months.
Yes, so that's for 4 months of the year. Yes, so that's incredible. The last thing that I had us track, which I appreciated, was the number of takeout kits that we did. So throughout the entire year, we had monthly take-home programs, take-home craft bags, and that sort of thing for people to pick up. We did crafts, we did cooking classes, we did we did STEM kits. We made 45 of those programs, and we gave out a total of 1,328 kits.
Wow.
So that was across the entire year. So we continue to do the takeout kits throughout the entire year. So even in September, when we started doing in-person programs, we had those takeout kits. So I had my librarians make takeout kits for each of the programs, so that if there was people who didn't feel comfortable coming to the library for the programs, we still had takeout kits available that they could just sign up and come pick up for their children or as adults. And that's something that we're still doing for some of our programming. We're not doing it for everything, but some of our stuff we're still offering as takeout kits. Those went over really, really well at our libraries. Some libraries, it didn't go over well, but ours, that was a huge thing. And then let's see, I have our number of summer reading program participants was 678. Something I wanted to share about this was in 2020, this was the third time in 2020 that we offered a virtual summer reading program. This is something that's big at a lot of libraries, is just having everything online. I did it twice prior to that as a children's librarian with mixed success. In 2020, we offered it and we only had 20 participants. So that's something where we're continuing to always offer our summer reading program like with a physical summer reading calendar, because it seems like our patrons keep telling us again and again, this is what we like. So that's a huge contrast between 2020 and last year, 20 versus 678. So yeah, granted, I think everyone was just really burned out in 2020. So that's how many people. That includes all ages, 0 to 100. We had 707 computer sessions during 2021. So we started offering computer sessions again in March when we reopened. So that's March to December. We had 747.
What does it
Computer
mean,
sessions.
computer sessions?
So that's how many times someone logged onto one of our public computers to use the internet or to use word processing or that sort of thing. We currently have 6 public computers. Prior to COVID, we had 13 public computers, and right now we only have 6. We haven't run into a snag where there's been more people that wanted to use the computers than computers that we have. So we're just continuing to watch that to see if we need to add more computers out or not. I feel like the thing we keep hearing is people will bring their laptops in and they want to be able to plug their laptop in. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges with our current library, is that we don't have enough outlets throughout the library for people to plug in computers. And the main challenge with that is that we have, desks set out in the middle of the floor, but our floor is all concrete. And so they can't put more outlets in the floor. So it's getting these outlets that are on the wall somehow over to people in the middle of the floor. So that's something we are trying to figure out what we can do. Okay.
I was just asking, do we track Wi-Fi connections?
We don't currently track Wi-Fi sessions. And that's something that was a question on this year's survey. So I got to figure out with Todd, how we track that.
How many guest loggers?
Yeah. I'm sure that's somewhere. But they were also asking for because a lot of libraries during COVID expanded their Wi-Fi range. So they wanted to know,
Yeah, there are a lot of students in
Yeah.
parking lots taking classes.
yeah. Let's see, so let's see, okay, I already covered that. The number of weeks that the library had limited occupancy due to COVID was 16. So 16 weeks that includes weeks that we were closed and only offering curbside, and then weeks when we first opened back up, but we could only have 20 people in the library at a time. So that's something they were interested in knowing for the report. Because some libraries had longer restrictions than we did. So that's our 2021 Washington Public Libraries Annual Report. So I wanted to share that with all of you.
Thank you. It provides a lot of great information, I think, for us and I'll just add this comment, moving forward with conversations with the council about the usage of our library and how our patrons, how much our patrons use it, enjoy it.
Mhm.
Any other comments for Jandy on that report?
I also think it's amazing that, the population served is 12,000, and within that population, we've got a third of our population has a library card. That's actually great to see.
Yeah, I'd be curious how that compares statewide and nationally. Yeah, so I may also send this out. I send a monthly report to council, and I'm thinking of including this with my June report so that they have a copy of this with our June numbers and then our 2021 numbers.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so we don't have Tim here today for our city council report. So I think we will move on to our ongoing business, which is our collection development policy review. Let's see.
Let me give a brief overview of the library.
Yes.
The Friends are very busy with their soiree planning and book sale coming up. And there's a lot of activity and a lot of things. They put a lot of, I guess what I'm trying to say, they put a lot of work into that soiree. And they've already been selling tickets at the farmers market, and they've done pretty well there. They also have been selling tickets to a quilt and a drawing that was graciously done by some folks at Frutina, and it's a beautiful quilt, and they have done very well at selling tickets for that drawing. And I don't know if you guys received, well, I know we all should have received an email from Betty Kennedy, who is the secretary of the Friends, in regards to a question about acquiring a storage unit. The library's room that is used by the Liberty Lake, the Friends of the Liberty Lake Library, or library, yes, is completely filled with books. And we've been collecting, when I say we, because I help Susan, who is the president of the Friends, donated books. And we have many books. And so trying to find a place to keep those books while they're waiting to be processed for book sales has become a problem. So they're asking us to if we see any problem with that money with them spending money to acquire a storage unit. So if you guys have time to read that, weigh in on it, send this, actually include all of this in your response to that, that'd be great. I personally don't see a problem with that, but does anybody have any comments about that? Okay, so that's all I have to offer for the Friends of the Library.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea and it would be a good use of funds, and from the research, it didn't seem overly expensive.
Right.
So,
No, it's a little over $100, something like that,
mhm.
from what I recall.
I would say the only comment I appreciated was, I think it was Bob or Pat Scanlon, who had said, consider getting a storage unit a little bit, not being, I guess, too conservative with it, because we'll want something where they can have a walkway, and then also something where if we get more books, there's somewhere for the books to go, so, yeah. I'm sorry that it wasn't considered before, your poor garage and storage unit.
No, well, that's all right, and it's a good problem to have. And so hopefully it can be resolved. And I think it's another point to make to the council about decisions that need to be made in regards to the library and the space. So going forward. Okay, great. Okay, so we are now at ongoing business, and that would be our collection development policy. And I think you sent a copy out to everybody, and I have a paper copy, but
So I did not send this paper copy out to everyone. This is something I was working on even today. So I have given everyone a copy of our current collection development policy.
okay.
Today we're going to be going over the selection criteria. Let me get this pulled up. Okay, so today we're going over the selection guidelines or the selection criteria. So this is what the librarians look at when they are looking at books to add to the library collection. So our books are added to the collection. The library board gives the city librarian and the rest of the librarians power to order, gives them the responsibility to order the books for the library. Librarians are highly trained and have a master's degree and have taken a lot of courses on collection development and what to look for when selecting materials for the library. So I'm going to quickly go over a couple of bullets from our selection criteria for the library. So Liberty Lake Municipal Library is a popular materials library. We're not a medical library. We're not a law library. We're a public library that collects popular materials for the general public. The library does not discriminate. The collection contains a variety of viewpoints that are represented in the library collection, and the library upholds the right of the individual to obtain information, though the content may be unacceptable to an individual. The Board of Trustees entrusts the development of the library collection to the library director, who may in turn delegate selections of the library collections to professional staff. So currently at our library, we have 2 librarians, myself as the director and Michaela, who's our teen and adult librarian. So I select the picture books and the juvenile materials, so that's ages 6 to 11. I select materials for both of those collections, and then our teen and adult librarian curates our teen collection, which is for ages 12 to 18, and our adult collection, which is ages 19 and above. So this is our current screenshot from our collection development policy. So right now, the criteria that we look at when selecting materials are support for the library's mission and values, the contents of the work and its significance or contribution to the diversity or breadth of the collection, the evaluation of the work in a professional, recognized critical review sources, authority and significance, competence of the author, producer, or publisher of the work, in case it's an audiovisual or video material, The accuracy and timeliness of the material, the expressed or perceived interest or demand for the material in the collection based on requests, data, etc. Local interest, local history, or community relevance. We do have a Liberty Lake local history section in the library. Effectiveness and suitability of the format for a public library. We don't buy like mass market paperbacks because those will just fall apart after one checkout. So we want to make sure that we have things that will hold up for a long time. And then impact on the materials budget. So what is the cost of the material? Is it too high for the perceived use of it? So that's what we currently look at when we're selecting materials for the library. One or more of these following selection criteria must be met for the material to be added into the collection. This consideration is given to materials that are purchased or are donated by someone to the library. Any of these criteria must be met for them to be added to the collection. So this is what our current policy is, and I wanted to know how our policy compares to other libraries to see how we're holding up. So I examined several different libraries. I wanted to point out a few of them that I looked at. This is Spokane Public Library. I took a look at their selection criteria. I like to look at Spokane Public Library for a lot of things because they are also a municipal library. So they have the same, I guess, codes and RCWs and that sort of thing that they have to follow, the same as us since they're a municipal library. Their board of library trustees is the same as ours as far as its powers and responsibilities and that sort of thing. So as you can see, their list is a little bit longer. They have public appeal or demand, accuracy, timeliness, and formats, same as us. Cultural significance, including literary merit, artistic quality, originality, and creativity. Diversity of viewpoint. Relevance to the present and potential needs of the community. Current interest in subject matter. Local interest in the subject or author. Circulation statistics. Limits of budget and space. The price and availability. Professional and special materials are purchased if they are general interest. The library doesn't purchase textbooks. Periodicals are added to the collection on the basis of relevance and community interest. Audiovisual materials are considered with customer demand, budget constraints, and reviews. All works by individual authors may not be considered for purchase. All criteria need not be met for consideration and held by peer libraries. So their list is a little bit longer. A couple things that I just liked from their policy is that they included circulation statistics, because that's something that I definitely look at. If I've started buying books for a series and I see the newest book in the series has come out, I'll look at the circulation statistics to see, for me, it's always kids. Are kids actually checking out this series? Do they like this series? Or did this author come out with a series and it's just not doing well? So that's something that I will look at when I'm looking at a material. Availability is something that needs to be considered. I get this particularly with purchase suggestions where a parent might want this series for their child, but I'll go on to our vendor, which is Baker and Taylor, and see if I can find it there. I also generally look at Amazon, and sometimes I can't get the book from either of those places. So even though it's something that maybe meets our criteria, it's not available, or it's only available from a used bookstore on Amazon or something like that, where it's not going to be in good condition. So that's something that I do look at. Sometimes also it's just something is out of stock. And so it might be something where we want to order it, but it's going to be 3 or 4 months before it's here. So that's something that we will still order it, but we have to keep in mind for our customers that it's not going to be here quickly. I'm trying to think if there's some other things. I think that was the main things I wanted to point out from theirs. This is the Coeur d'Alene Public Library. So they're over in Idaho. We do share a lot of books with Coeur d'Alene Public Library. They're also a municipal library, but they are in Idaho, so they do have some different codes than we do for certain things. But if you notice, they also have a little bit longer of a policy. So they'll look at the suitability of the format, the cost relative to the value, the relevance to observed or anticipated community need and desires, the authority, reputation, and qualifications of the author, the distinguished awards or merits. So that's something that they point out specifically that they look at. The local significance of authors or creators, the content that reflects the special interest and history of Idaho, consideration of the work as a whole. So they want to make sure that they're looking at the whole book and not just one specific page of the book. The accuracy and currency of the material, representation of diverse viewpoints. So that's something I've noticed in both of these policies is they do say they're focusing on the diverse viewpoints specifically as its own line and doesn't lump it in with anything else. Long-term or historical significance. So they're looking at materials that may be controversial now, but had a lot of significance prior. So we do get that a lot with a lot of our Newbery books or award-winning books that children are reading in schools. They might have things that are controversial, but they're still significant to the time period of the day. The availability of the material in the library collection, relation to the library's existing collection and other materials available on the subject. So if it's some, if you're looking at some sort of science book, what do we have on this topic? Do we already have enough materials that covers this topic? Or is this material old? Do we need to update it? That sort of thing. They also don't collect textbooks. Liberty Lake also doesn't collect textbooks. Duplicate copies may be purchased to fill demand as finances allow. So for those really popular titles, they might order more than one copy. Attention of critics, reviewers, media, and the public. So is this on a bestseller list? Is this book getting a lot of attention currently? Is it, a cookbook and it's a fad diet? Anything like that is something that they might want to order because if everyone's talking about it, their patrons might want it also. And then they have their electronic format criteria that they go through. So something that I noticed is some libraries have a very long list of things that they're looking at, and some libraries like to keep it a little bit more broad. So this is the King County Library System over on the west side. They just have 8 basic selection criteria that they look at. They said that they value keeping their policy general. And so they just have current and anticipated needs and interests of the public, evaluations and review media, accuracy and timeliness of content, authors, artists, or publishers' qualifications and their reputation, contribution to diversity or breadth of the collection, presentation of unique or controversial points of view, and recipient of nominations for major awards or prizes. Let's see, inclusions in titles and standards, bibliographies or indexes, and quality of production. So theirs is a lot shorter of a policy. The last one I wanted to point out is another Idaho library. This is the Eagle, Idaho Libraries policy. They have the demonstrated or perceived interest, needs, or demands by library users or potential users of the item, the item's contemporary significance, the item's likely permanent value, the item's relevance to the experiences and contributions of diverse populations, the item's quality, including its accuracy, clarity, and usability, the critical reviews, bibliographies, and awards concerning the item, the significance, authority, and competence of the item's creator, the item's importance as a document of times, the item's timeliness and accuracy of information, the item's format, durability, and ease of use, the item's scarcity of ability elsewhere. This is something that I do look at when I am reading or when I have an item that comes up damaged, is do I want to replace this item? And so I will look at the statistics for the book, and I will also look at which other libraries in our system have this book. Do 20 other libraries have this book, and this book isn't something that's flying off the shelves anymore? Maybe I won't replace it because our patrons can still get it from 20 other libraries, or I will, or am I the only library that has this book and I want to continue to buy this book because I think it's something that our patrons of our library and other libraries are wanting. So that is something that we do look at, that they're pointing out. The item's value in relation to its cost. And then professional reviews. Something that I liked about this is that it listed a lot of the primary sources of reviews that they look at. So for them, they look at Library Journal, Booklist, Kirkus, School Library Journal, Ingram Advance, Baker and Taylor's Forecast, and Midwest Buyer's Guide. So they say which libraries that they're looking at for reviews of the material before they buy it. So I wanted to show you guys an example of 3 or 4 different libraries and their selection materials. I did look at more than 4 libraries. The Washington State Library, which is our state library, has a list of every single policy for every single library on their website. So I went through tons of different libraries because I wanted to get an idea of where are these libraries consistent? Where are these libraries different? How does it compare to our policy? Where do I feel like we're doing well? Is there other things that I want to incorporate into our policy? And is there anything that I want to change? Something that I noticed also is just the language that some of the libraries are using. Some of them use more librarian language, and then other libraries try to use more general terms that maybe if a patron is curious about our policy, they might be able to understand it better. So I'm going to pull up some suggestions that I have for changes to our policy for you guys to take a look at. This is not something we're going to be like voting on today. We're going to vote on our policy once the entire policy is completely done. But since we're just looking over this section today, I wanted to give this to you guys to get your feedback. And then I'll be sending out obviously to Tim and Kim also to get their feedback. And then this is something that we can talk about more at our upcoming meetings. Let me just pull up that page.
Did you send this to us? This one, is you're gonna show us now?
So I did not send this out. I just finished it before the meeting.
Got it.
So I printed off a document for you guys to look at, and then I'm going to share my screen so that Teresa and anyone else who's tuning in now or watches the meeting later can have this to look at. So I guess the other thing I should add is I've been working on this policy with Michaela, who is our teen and adult librarian. So this is something that we've been working on together to kind of get, even more eyes on the policy. And this is something that she just went through last semester in her graduate program. So it's still really fresh in her mind. So it was great to have her perspective on this as also. She's also been working with me on some feedback for our request for reconsideration of materials. So these are some of the suggestions that I had. This is not, I have it bulleted, but this is not like necessarily the order that I'll have everything in. So one thing I wanted to focus on the top of the document is we added collection development staff use their training, knowledge, and expertise along with the following general criteria to select materials for the collection. It's just something we want to make clear. I think it says above also in the policy that the library board gives the authority to the library director and the librarians to select the materials, and the librarians who select the materials are trained on how to do this. This is not something that we have our support staff do or just someone off the streets. This is something we've been trained and taking courses on. So something that I wanted to eliminate from the policy is support for the library's mission and values. We state our mission and values above in the policy. And I think that this isn't the appropriate place to put this part of this. We do support the library's mission and values, but that's not what the collection is for. Yes, thank you. Sorry.
And I didn't see that in any of the other policies.
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary.
yeah. So, that's something that I'm proposing that we eliminate from the policy as a bullet point. So some of this, I just me and Michaela just kind of reworded what we're saying. And then some of the things are things that we are specifically adding. So I'll point that out as well. So we have the materials contribution to the diversity or breadth of the collection. That's something we just kind of reworded. The evaluation of materials in a professionally recognized critical review source. So I really liked how the Eagle Idaho Library added that to their policy. So we've inputted our primary sources that we look at for reviews of materials. These are Baker and Taylor's Forecast. They are our vendor that we buy the majority of our books from. Kirkus Reviews, Book List, Library Journal, School Library Journal, and the Horn Book is the last one that we look at. So those are the primary places that we look for reviews of materials.
What was the last one? Because it's not.
Sorry, the Horn Book, HORN, Horn Book. So that's a children's picture book material that I look at each month when I'm ordering picture books for the collection. We have critical reviews, bibliographies, and awards concerning the material. This is something that we look at when we're selecting materials, but I guess something I want to point out to the board is not every book that ever comes out has a review of it. Some things that Michaela was talking about today is Liberty Lake residents really like what we call cozy mysteries, but there isn't a lot of reviews for cozy mysteries. So it's not something, that's something that we wanted to emphasize when we're selecting materials is not every book is going to meet every single solitary one of these criteria. And we don't want that to be the requirement because if it does, there's a lot of books that we can't buy for the library.
Yeah, and I think one of the other policies, and I don't see it in here in that selection criteria, I think we need to make that clear that these guidelines, they're following general criteria to select this, including but not limited, like not all of the criteria need to be met in order to meet.
Yes, I want to say it was spoken public. That was their final bullet, was it said, not all criteria need to be met in order to buy the material.
Yeah, I want to make sure we state that because I don't want someone to come and look at this and say, this cozy mystery didn't meet all the requirements. So
Yes.
why do you keep buying them? Because that would meet the local interest bullet.
Yes, it is a local interest for Liberty Lake, is what we call cozy mysteries. So we do look at reviews and we do look at bibliographies and awards concerning the materials. The reputations and qualifications of the author, publisher, or producer, with preference generally given to titles vetted in editing or publishing industry. The accuracy and timeliness of the material, as well as the publication date. We don't want to, order medical books from 2012 because the medical industry is changing very rapidly. With our, just some background, when we're doing our weeding, which is when we take books that out of the collection, we have a whole list of criteria that includes how long a material is considered accurate for its subject matter. So with medical materials, it's usually 0 to 3 years, whereas maybe history is a little bit longer. So we do look at those, we have a list of those general dates, but we don't want to list every single one of those in here because that would make this document really long. But that's something that we look at as the publication date, particularly when it's nonfiction. Obviously with fiction, there might, Margaret Atwood and The Handmaid's Tale. That became a TV show and now it's really popular. And so that's something that it's an older title. And so we ordered a new copy a couple years ago for our library to have with the resurgence of that. But obviously that was not the book from 2015 or whatever. So we have the expressed or perceived interest or demand for the material based on requests, reports, hold counts on the materials selected by other libraries in CIN. The other thing I wanted to add that's not on this list is the circulation statistics.
Okay.
So like I was saying before, how if it's a series, how the other books in the series are doing to tell us, do we need to order this next book or this next copy of the book?
One of the things, and I forget which policy it was, and it kind of falls between this and the next bullet point, was they were talking about like publicity and, you know, are people talking about it? Does it have critical acclaim?
Mhm.
But I don't know if that is something we want to consider.
I just don't know if that's what, I'm wondering if that's what I mean by perceived interest.
Yeah.
Is perceived interest, you know, I'm seeing a lot of newspaper articles, I'm hearing stuff on, you know, in the news or on, I follow a lot of bookstagrammers, so, you know, Instagram, TikTok. Is this book getting a lot of buzz?
So do we want to maybe add publicity to this list based on requests, reports, hold counts?
I'm not sure I agree with you on
Okay.
that, Sean. I don't know how specific we want to be. And I don't think we need a list that's a mile long, as you've already indicated. But I'm I have to think about the publicity and I guess I have to weigh that a little bit in my mind.
So I'll put a question mark.
Teresa, how do you feel about that particular addition to about the publicity of the publication? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I heard the part. I'm sorry, I heard the part where we were discussing about whether we should add that specific verbiage in, but then it got muffled toward that end
Just
part.
ask for your opinion about that, adding that to that particular verbiage, as you said, to the criteria.
Yeah, my only concern is, like you mentioned, if we get too specific or in the weeds about, you know, just particular publication in there, I feel like that could be used later as a criteria of, or, you know, why wasn't this, you know what I mean, just as validation for it. So I didn't want it to be challenged if we get too specific.
No, yeah, I agree with that, but my concern is that requests, reports, or hold counts isn't broad enough. Like, somebody would say, well, did anybody ask for that book? And we could instead say, well, you know, Ukraine is in the news a lot right now, and so we thought some books on Ukraine history might be applicable. But no, nobody immediately came and asked for a book on Ukraine history. That was what was going through my mind, but I'm certainly not tied to it.
Wondering if there's another way to say that
Yeah.
without
Same
putting the word publicity in
Yeah.
it. That's what I'm stuck on.
Yeah,
Is the verbiage. If we could come up with another way of expressing that.
So I'm just wondering if that kind of, if your example falls under the timeliness of the material
mhm.
instead of publicity, you know, like you're saying with Ukraine.
Yeah.
Or, you know, during certain times of the year, or like when we get a new president, we get a lot of rush of new materials on, you know, President Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And that's something that's maybe timeliness, where it's like or the Ukraine war, or, you know, something that we're looking at for is getting more, looking over our Vietnam materials, because the Vietnam Memorial Wall is coming to Liberty Lake. So
Yeah.
that's something where we perceive that people are gonna have a lot of interest in that.
So the local interest, local history, community, or national relevance.
Yeah, I think national relevance, national, international relevance.
I think
So-
that timeliness is, I agree with you about the timeliness of a piece of work. I think
Mhm.
it's-
It might cover it instead of saying publicity.
How do you feel about that, Teresa? The word, the timeliness, does that kind of cover it for you think?
Yeah, I was even trying to think of, like, in terms of expanding on relevance, so maybe even like potential interest. Like, I don't know if that would be, or community relevance and interest. Would that,
Yeah, we do have one that says local interest. Local interest to me would seem like.
oh yeah,
community.
that makes sense, yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, I like timeliness, just so that it's specific to like, oh, this is an event that's occurring.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the bullet right above the one we're talking. In looking at this, it's the expressed or perceived interest or demand based on. It's the based on, like, I think we could just say expressed or perceived interest or demand for the material.
maybe, expressed or perceived interest or demand for the material, and then scratch based on, and then maybe consideration, maybe given to requests, reports,
There you
Old
go.
Town
Yeah,
materials.
consideration may be given to.
I like
think- I like that. I like that a lot.
What do you think, Teresa?
Yeah, because what that does is it'll also incorporate current events.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it gives that perceived, including but not limited to.
Okay, I really like that. I think that makes it a lot better. Okay, and so the next one I have is local interest, local history, community, or national relevance. So I think sometimes when I read this, someone might read it as local history things only, but it's supposed to be more broad than that. Things that Liberty Lake is interested in, not just like history, it could be any topic. Local interest, local history, community, or national relevance. So it kind of wraps into what we're talking about before, what's going on in our world right now. Media wise, but also just, you know, diets, fads,
Yeah.
popular authors. Liberty Lake is definitely a bestseller library. Our patrons really like the next James Patterson, and you know that brand new World War II documentary that just came out maybe doesn't go over as well for us. So it's focusing on what our patrons like, but also trying to balance that with having a well-rounded collection, because we're a library, we need to have books on every topic, not just Liberty Lake only likes cookbooks, or all libraries only do cookbooks.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to be clear that that's not.
No, and that
We're
goes back
focusing
to
on.
that first bullet with the diversity and breadth of the
Yeah.
collection also.
Yes. And then we have, this goes to the physical book itself, the adequate standards of quality and durability in content, format, and physical appearance. So we specifically buy our materials, the majority of our materials, from a library book vendor. Ours is called Baker and Taylor. There's several for the, throughout the United States. But we buy a lot of our materials from that library, from that specific vendor, so that our materials will hold up longer, because people are going to continue to check them out. It's not just something that's going to sit on your bookshelf at home. So we buy books that are going to hold up well. And so sometimes things are published in like a spiral bound or something, and that's just something that's not going to go over well. So sometimes we don't buy those specific materials for our library because they're not going to hold up, and we'll just throw our money away. The impact on the materials budget, so how much something costs, and then the availability of the materials through interlibrary loan or electronic resources. The other thing I wanted to add to this that I had thought of before the meeting started was availability of the materials through our preferred vendor, interlibrary loan, or electronic resources. So that's something that we look at, is, can I get this book from Baker and Taylor? Yes or no? We also do buy things from Amazon, so it's, that's why I'm just saying preferred vendors. And then is this material available at another library in our system? So maybe it's not something that, every single person needs to have. And then also, is it available electronically? So sometimes we do buy materials in multiple formats. So
Jandy, I have a question really quick about I'm just wondering for the bullet point that says adequate standards of quality, durability, and content, format, and physical appearance. And you explained to us like what standards we follow and what vendors and organizations we look to. I wonder if we could include maybe a footnote there and then have a reference page of those particular, like the ALA, you know, different references there. So that way, just in case anybody questions it, we could easily go back to, well, these are the standards with which we follow for these criteria.
Or could we just say adequate library standards? Like, are there just some standards?
So where you have adequate standards of quality, in your mind, what are your standards that you're looking at?
So
So what you must, when you say adequate standards of quality, and someone could ask this eventually, say, so what are the standards of the quality that you're looking at when you purchase a book? Or
so
the
that,
durability of content, I think, speaks
Yeah.
for itself. But standards always makes me think of a list. Okay, what is the list of the standards that you're looking at? Or who are you going to for the standard?
Mhm.
Well, and my only clarification for that piece was, and Jandy, when you were explaining that bullet point, you kind of listed off the book vendor and then a couple other sources that we use to verify those standards or to measure those standards against. And my only thought was maybe including just a little footnote with a reference page in case people are like, well, is this up to like personal preference for standards of quality, or is it going through a vetted source? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making that, if that makes sense.
I guess I'm also, I don't know if I have the answer for this right now. I'm wondering if what we're trying to focus on this is just like the durability, the format, the physical appearance, and adequate standards of quality makes it sound like something else
Yeah.
first. And really, we're just trying to say,
Is it durable?
is the book of high quality? It's gonna hold up. So I'm wondering.
Oh,
if this
see,
is-
and I think where, okay, and where I got in the weeds was
You're
the
talking about
section of
your-
content. So like durability of the content, like, is it a robust book? Is it gonna meet the previously bulleted points of local interest? So I was thinking more in the content verbiage versus the physical. Is the binding good? Is the book, you know, physically durable? That's what I was looking at, sorry.
Okay, so when you say adequate standards of quality, we're talking about the physical qualities of the book?
Yes, I think that's the main focus of this.
Okay.
That's how I was reading.
But I'm also, sorry, I'm just looking through our other criteria because we do look at the quality, particularly like with the nonfiction work, we're looking at the quality of the material, some of it is like what we said with the author, like who wrote this book, do they know their stuff? The quality of the material, like, I'm just trying to decide if that's, I know in this bullet point, I'm covering the physical things of the book, but I do want to make it clear that we're looking at the quality of the contents of the book as well. And I'm just wondering, is that listed anywhere else? Do you get what I'm saying? Or am I covering that elsewhere?
I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you actually do say adequate standards of quality and durability in content,
Mhm.
format, and physical appearance. So you're considering all those
Maybe the
things.
book as a whole?
Yeah, but I get Teresa's point of if we're using quality here
Mhm.
to mean, I think we're covered as far as the quality Teresa is referencing when we say is it professionally recognized? Is it critical reviews, bibliographies and awards considering the material, reputation and qualifications of the author and publisher? That all goes to the quality of the content
Yes.
versus this bullet down here. I was interpreting quality in this to
Mhm.
be physical quality
Mhm.
and durability. So we may want to, instead of quality, either say physical quality or just say adequate standards of durability in,
Content, format, and physical appearance.
I don't know
Well,
that
can't we just
content
eliminate
is
content?
durability.
Yeah.
Can we just eliminate the content, say adequate standards of quality and durability
In
in
format.
format and physical appearance?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
If
Adequate standards of quality and durability,
you're okay with,
format, and physical appearance, because
Yeah.
that is what we're trying to,
Yeah, that's what this bullet is getting to.
yeah, I think it was just too.
as long as you're okay with the adequate standards of quality for the overall book having been covered in the other bullets.
I think
Which
it
I think
is.
everybody is agreed it is, especially under the evaluation of material, professional,
Mhm.
and that.
Yeah, especially given that we're now enumerating what our primary sources are for those professionally recognized critical reviews.
Yes.
So,
What do you think, Teresa?
Yeah, that makes more sense. I think the way I'm looking at these, because of what we've gone through, just past experience now, it makes me look at it from the opposite viewpoint to make sure there's not anything that could be pulled out and then picked apart. So that's the only part, is I just didn't want it to be like, well, you're talking about content here, you know what I mean? I didn't want anything to be questioned with that regard. So
do we, just in going up above for that evaluation, do we look at like the ALA reviews also?
We do, these are just our primary
Got it.
main
Okay.
ones that we look at. And the ones that we're consistently looking
Got
at.
it.
We have a few others that we'll look at, or, if we're not, like I said, not every book is reviewed in every source. And so we'll look at other things as well.
oh, and Jandy, I don't know, I emailed it before the meeting, but I had put some WAC reference codes and RCWs into a draft of this that you had sent to the team back in May. And so it was just in the comment section of my PDF, but I sent those to you just so you had those codes and reference points if you need to add them in as citations.
No, that's perfect. I saw that right before the meeting. So thank you for getting those out.
Could you share that with all of us, Teresa?
I can bring it up after we're finished.
I will, yeah, I was gonna say, I can send that to everybody. I sent it when I emailed Jandy just saying, hey, I'm gonna be on Zoom instead of personally. I also, as a footnote, was like, oh, also, I forgot that I made this for you, so. Yeah, I can push it to the team too after.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yeah, and I have a couple, I just printed a couple and highlighted to provide, if you want to reference sort of that suitability. But I don't quite see in the selection criteria a place to put those references. And I don't know that in the selection criteria, those bullet points is the correct place to put references to the code, and I didn't see that in anyone else's.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of for the code in the stuff that we discussed last week. So I'll pull it up so we can see Teresa's, just defining some terms, and that sort of thing.
Jenny, I have one other thing I'd like to ask about the bullet points you have here. I noticed in some of the others, they made reference to points of view. I can't remember the whole thing, but being representative of all, representing all points of view in the select, as they select. I don't see that in ours. I'm wondering if, now I'll ask for input from our other board members. Where do we need something like that in there, or should we not have something does that open up a can of worms?
I think it's covered with that first one, their contribution to the diversity and breadth of the collection. But if we want, I would say if we want something additional, we can include it with that and the breadth of, or the.
So I feel like that's, because this is a whole collection development policy. So we're just looking at, page 2 or whatever of it. If we pull up the other policy, we can look at Teresa's things that she added, the stuff that the stuff that Sean wants to add that, goes over not excluding and that sort of thing. So I think
Taken as a whole.
taken as a whole, it includes everything that we need, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So let me pull up that for everyone to see.
Yeah, because that document has the references to free speech and
While she's pulling that up, I'm just going to use the restroom really fast. I'll be right back.
Sorry, I don't know why it still shows like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the side, because it makes it smaller. But Shauna, do you want to mention what you were going to add?
I didn't have specific places to add it. I had just looked up the references to the codes, and it sounds like Teresa put them specifically in places. So
Okay,
let's go through what she has. And
Well, there it is, what I was talking about. It's in the very, it's already there, so we're good.
something that Michaela had suggested to me today as well is because at the top we reference the First Amendment of the Constitution, the Library Bill of Rights, the freedom to read, etc. Since this policy will be posted on our webpage, to just make these hyperlinks
yeah,
so that people can easily access those. So I thought that was a really good
Great
suggestion,
idea.
since that's something that we're saying that we incorporate into our policy.
So are you saying, Jandy, that this is where, if there needs to be some RCW references, this is where it would appear?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we would just put footnotes
yeah.
or something, you know, like 1, 2, 3, and then,
If you scroll up, the yellow,
so she's just saying, shows the authority on the board.
Yeah.
And then she has. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down.
That second comment one is pretty long. And then there's also a reference, if you scroll through that comment, to the additional RCWs that are in there. Does it let you, or does it only show you a portion of it?
I think it's only showing me a portion of it.
Oh darn, okay, I'll have to email it, or I'll get it from my version of it, because it's a lot longer.
I mean, this is the collection development policy. I don't know that we need all of that because that's in other places about, like on the website. This is who the library board is. This is, I mean, we don't need to say who the library board is in the collection development policy.
Okay. And then, sorry, I'm just looking through all the comments. So we have adult materials. So we have the definitions of erotic material, the definition of minors, and then definition of erotic material.
Yeah.
And then I also included, it's not on that, it doesn't, it's at the bottom of that comment, but it's on the full version of mine, but it has also the exemption of the library too.
Yeah,
The
so,
exemption of the
yeah,
library.
and I think when we make a reference, we would just say like materials intended for an adult not covered are provided on a wide range of subjects, and emphasis is placed on acquiring materials through racial reading.
And on there, so in my comment, I included the definition, but I figured that when we put it in, we would just have the RCW code and not the full piece. in
Yeah,
there.
so if we make a reference within that to RCW 9.68, that gives the whole, it gives the exemptions for libraries and museums, and it gives what the definitions of one erotic materials is, but there's also a cross-reference to another RCW 748A, which is lewd matter, and both erotic material and lewd matter have a qualification where they lack, when considered as a whole, it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. And it's similar for the other definitions. So I think if we make cross references just to the whole RCW 9.68, that will
That covers it.
Libraries are exempted from criminal prosecution, is because RCW is a criminal code. And this is the definition that we're using. We're using the state's definition of these. So I think we need to, we'll definitely need to wordsmith how to make the references in there. But I don't think it'll be difficult.
The only other thing I want to add also is just there was a lot of question about the libraries not parenting
Yes.
children. So I would like to make a footnote to the First Amendment
Got it.
cases that we found.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like that's been a lot of questions that people have lately is, can libraries limit who can check out what materials and why? And so I think that would be valuable to include for our patrons so that they can see this is why we can't do that.
True, but that's a separate policy. That's not the collection development policy.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But it's just, I know that
That's more of a collection access. Although we could put it,
It could be
So-
in the lead-in comments, the lead-in
yes, so
comments to
I said I know it's in the
unrestricted,
lead-in.
full, confidential, and unrestricted access to the library collection is essential for the city's residents to participate in our democracy.
Right.
And this includes
And that,
everybody's access but no.
that's for your,
So yeah, we could put it in here, but I don't want the collection development process to become a policy document for the whole management of the whole library.
Yeah, we do have separate policies for all aspects of the library. So.
But we can easily put a footnote there to some of the case law, or even just that because we do have the Library Bill of Rights from the American Library Association, the freedom to read, the freedom to view statements. We can even in one of those put access to information input, because all of those cases about access to information are on one page on the ALA site.
Yeah, so that's perfect. Okay, so we're at 2:25. Do I have a motion to extend the meeting another 10 minutes or something? Or what are you guys thinking?
So moved.
Okay, so we've extended the meeting till 2:40.
Yep.
This is everything that I had to go over as far as the selecting materials. The things that I want to go over next meeting is our reconsideration for request for reconsideration of materials. So that is our policy. That's the portion of our policy that goes over if a patron has a. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down to that portion of it.
Oh, you just passed it
Oh, thank you.
up a little one. Okay.
Our request for reconsideration of library materials. So next meeting, I'd like to go over what our current policy is on if a patron has a material that challenge for a material that they don't want in the library. what our policy is currently and any changes that we want to make to that policy for the future. So that's what I'd like to go over at our next meeting.
Okay, so do we want to finish this one up first and approve this one, or do you want to approve both of those together?
So we're gonna approve the whole policy when it's completely finished.
So the collection development policy and the book reconsideration policy.
So
That's all part of one policy, is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
yes, so this is all one policy. I guess I've just, in my mind, it's broken up into chunks.
I hear you.
So this is the other chunk that I know we've been working on in past meetings, talking about. So I want to bring back all of the changes that we discussed at our March meeting or April meeting. So I want to bring back all of the changes that I've made to the policy for you guys to look over. I've had a few more suggestions that I would want to get your input on. So we'll go over that. And then this will also give any citizens, if they have any comments regarding our request for a reconsideration policy, that they have time to do some research on the policy and they can bring back those questions at next meeting or any future meeting that we have. So I think that's the part that we'll go over next meeting. So read it over and we'll talk about that at our next meeting.
Are you going to incorporate these red lines into this?
Yes,
Okay, and then.
yes. So it's like
read
the
that together.
document will be continually changing. I do have the current version saved and then our new draft version saved, so that we can see clearly what changes were being made. So I'll send that out with Teresa's notes, the selection criteria notes, and then our request for reconsideration notes that we've made. So you guys have that fresh, clean copy as well. Great. So let me just pull up the agenda.
Yeah,
And
well-
then Sandy, can you send me the cloud recording of the meeting so that way I can finish up my notes for the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, Jenny, we have one other action, we have an action item on here. Do you want to address that before we move on to anything else, or what?
So I just wanted to give a quick update on the RFP, and then I'll do the two
Okay,
the one action item that we have. So I met with Lisa earlier this week on our RFP. So we're asking for an architect to do a review of the library, and then also for a professional organizer. The two RFPs are significantly different. So for the architect, it's a request for qualifications. So they have to submit their qualifications as an architect. It's like, she gave me a copy of the sample document. It's like 20 pages long. And then we have our request for proposal for the professional organizer, which is like a one sheet. So I'm going to be working with her on developing that. It is a process where we'll create this document. I'll give it over to you guys to review, and then we'll have to post it. And it's one of those things where we post it and they have a month to respond. With the architect, I don't know. I feel like with the city council, their main concern was cost. With the request for qualifications, there's certain requirements to how we post it and how the architect responds. And they give us a sealed envelope with their cost proposal, in that you're supposed to kind of ambiguously, or I guess, what's the word? Subjectively look over their qualifications and that sort of thing. And then at a certain point, you can look at what the cost is. So there's some guidelines of things that we need to follow, but basically, I'm gonna get the policy drafted and then have you guys review it. Then we'll post it for the architects to respond. And then we will, as a board, we'll rate them on paper, who we think is the best. And then we can also do an interview with them to see before we make a selection. And then we'll be able to take those to council for their consideration. So it's a longer, I guess naively, it's a longer process than I thought it was. So
normally it is. So our, when the RFP goes out, is it going to include, are we gonna be specific about what we're asking?
Yes, so it's
the, architect
extremely-
To do?
It's extremely specific, so I will definitely be getting you guys' feedback from the board on things that they're looking for, and also for my staff on things that they're looking for. And then also like things from like the city facilities, if they have any insight on things. So yes, you're supposed to be as specific as possible so that the architect can determine if it's something that they want to pursue, and also that they can draft a proposal to hopefully, you know, takes them a lot of time and money to give you what you want. So, yeah,
Well, since we're here, they also approved a professional organizer.
mhm.
Where did you guys land on that?
So, as I was saying, the architect is like a very thick document that we have to, create. The professional organizer is just a one sheet, so it's just like one single sheet, because it's considered a professional service. And so that one's a little bit quicker and more straightforward. I don't have the document in front of me, but we can send that out and hopefully get someone, selected a lot quicker than with the architect. So, my plan is to quickly do the professional organizers and get that one sent out, and then, focus all the time into the architect. But I think both the architect and the professional organizer are both needed, and will really help in our interim, where we can get an idea. Particularly the professional organizer, I think, could really help with my staff's quality of work, quality of life at the library, something that they could really help with really quickly. And then with the architect, that can really give us an idea of what we can do with the space that we have, and what changes we can make going forward if the city council decides they want to make some changes to the current space that we have. So there's the update on that. And then we have one action item, which is to give the library permission to waive 2 fines that have been at the collection agency for 6 years. So because the fines are over $100, it's something that we have to have, and it's considered in the library a high cost. It's something that we have to have the board's permission to waive those 2 fines. It's just one of those things where, since it's been 6 years that the collection agency has attempted to get these funds back, they have been unsuccessful, and now it's reached the statute of limitations. So there isn't anything more that we can do. So
So we need a motion to do that.
yes, we need a motion.
Okay, I so move to waive the 2 fines that have been at the collection agency for 6 years.
All those in favor, hand in the air?
We need a second.
Oh, I need a second. Teresa, can you second that, please?
Yes. Second.
I'm soliciting a second. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, all those in favor, raise their hand. The motion, I'm not gonna reread it.
Yes.
To waive the 2 fines.
Okay, approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so those, I will give those to our circulation to process that for us. So thank you very much.
So we do still collect fines?
So we don't collect book fines. These are, with our collections, since it's 6 years, they probably do, and they do include fines. Since they've already gone to the collection agency, that wasn't something we could edit in the past. But yes, generally all of our fines are just for materials that never were returned, and so they owe us for the materials. So our next meeting is going to be on July 13th here at City Hall. It will also be available for people to tune in via Zoom. We'll have our outlet here that will be soliciting that. Hopefully all 5 of us can be here at the next meeting. Do you guys have any requests right off the top of your head of new things that you want to bring up at the next meeting?
Well, I do.
Yes.
I would like, could you provide us a report on the grant that the state has, and when or how, or, you know, we would go about applying for that. I think that would go a long way towards getting the city council, if they knew there was you know, there was a real legit chance that we could land at matching funds, that would be a good thing for us going forward.
So I think with that, our best bet is to get the architect. Because with the grant, they require a lot of, I don't know, professional documents is the wrong word, but I know with the grant, we can apply for it next spring. It's for a large project, and it's something where they have a lot of documentation and things that they need. So it's something where I think we need to make the council aware that it's an option. And hopefully by going after this RFP and getting back on, getting the council discussing more of like what they want to do with the future of the library, then we can get some more headway with that. But I do feel like it did catch their attention at the last few meetings when we brought it up.
Right, no, it did, and I think referencing the architect as a important piece of being able to apply for that grant is also
Valuable.
a valuable thing.
Yes.
Yeah, because there were a couple of prerequisites to even before applying.
Mhm.
One was determining if we're going to stay in our current building more than 10 years,
Mhm.
or if we're going to move to a larger facility, and having an architect determine if we could even use our current building for 10 more years. And
Mhm.
then we need to get matching funds from the state. Like, there were so many
Yeah.
prerequisites.
Yeah, just because obviously it can be up to $2 million. So I understand that the state has their parameters for that.
Okay, good, all right. Anybody have any other comments? Questions for Jandy? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
238, perfect.